This is Maury Minix backing up another vlog, and in this vlog I'll be talking about my final project, which is about player compensation and overall player empowerment and the issues of players and their connection with the NCAA. So this is an issue that's been very pressing on my mind. It's one I've been thinking about for a very long time, as even before I was a student in college, and I knew a couple of student athletes who every day go to class, go to practice, and then try to balance that with social life and just other stresses, day-to-day stresses. It's just a lot to try to balance for a person, especially a young person. And to consider you're doing all that and you're making heaps of money for the university and you're not being compensated for your time. And the university is meanwhile raking in huge sums of money, and this overall huge corporation, which it is basically a corporation now to make that much money, the NCAA, is seeing multi-million-dollar deals with TV networks, and they're selling concessions, and all this money is trickling to the top and all these universities are seeing these huge sums of money, which in some cases is going to helping students at universities and the programs, and some of the money is going back into the programs, the athletic programs that these students are involved in. But a lot of that money isn't. It's going to these huge contracts that coaches are receiving and athletic directors are receiving, and they're receiving these huge sums of cash. And the players who are actually doing the playing, putting in the effort, putting their health, their bodies, and their future on the line, are receiving no compensation for their time and their energy and their efforts. And that's just a blatant, obvious injustice that has been existent in our country since the NCAA has been a entity that's made money and cared about making money. And the idea that you have to separate money making and amateurism, and there's this gray area where, oh, because they're young and because they're students, that they can't make money. It seems like a ridiculous cop-out excuse to not pay someone for their time and their energy. If this was any other industry, then that wouldn't be acceptable. But if you look at the makeup of the NCAA athletes, specifically the ones who are the most visible ones, they're usually young black men. And there's the systematic history of the relationship between young black men in this country that doesn't really need to be gone into detail, because it's pretty obvious the relationship between black men in this country and how it's just wrought with injustice. And this is one of the instances where that is plain to see for anyone who can view it. But the idea that the few, would hoard this kind of money and not give it to players because they've earned it. This is their money based off the time and energy they've given to their sport. It's obvious that they should be given this money. And so in this piece, I go a little more into that, and I interview my roommate, Garen Jones, who's a basketball player here. I talked to him about his day-to-day. I looked at different things like Tua Tagovailoa's recent injury and how that may affect his future and his money-making capacity, injury that could have very easily been avoided. I talk about the new bill in California that Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law, the Fair Play for Fair Pay Act, that allows for the payment of players and for them to receive money from the likenesses. And the NCAA is now considering that. And I view that as a positive, a step for the future, but I also view that as, if that's where the NCAA stops, as far as the concept of player compensation, I don't think it's enough. I think that it allows for some, for example, Zion Williamson, who was the #1 pick in the NBA, who, when he was in college, he could have made large sums of money off his likenesses, probably in the millions. He would benefit from this. But many other student athletes, 1,000 student athletes or the few on his team who don't have the same name, wouldn't make nearly as much money as they deserve, simply because their names aren't as well known. So I think there should be a wholesale change in that all athletes should get paid for their time based on how much money the programs bring in. And also, I think this can be done by reducing coaches' salaries, because they don't need to be making as much money as they make, and by equitably splitting the money that programs bring in. This is Morgan Minix, a little bit about my final project. Hope you enjoy. Have a good day.